I thought I'd start with a quick question and answer. Would anyone have random questions for me that I can answer for you in the next 2 minutes? This is 2 minutes, and I will answer any question you'll provide.
When did you start doing drag?
Oh, when did I start doing drag? I don't know if I consider when I do drag because I just try to look beautiful. If that's, but I did it when I was like, I don't know. I would argue that I did it when I was a kid, when I watched Sailor Moon and like made everyone watch me do the dance when they were transforming. I would argue that I did it when I like belly danced at my high school talent show. But I just had really amazing people around me that were really supportive. So it was really wonderful just one day feeling confident enough to walk down the street, catch a taxi, meet people that are just like me and not feel intimidated. It's been really amazing. And I think one of the people that make that possible, that curate that kind of space, is Candy Tanaka, and I don't think she gets enough credit, so I just want to do a shout out. We should applaud for Candy. Any other questions? Yes, sir. First time caller, long time listener, I assume.
Why is the sky blue?
Why is the sky blue? What's your name? Dave? Because you're in the world, Dave. Because you're in it. Ooh, girl! Is he married? Is
Not anymore.
Is your boyfriend? Ooh.
I don't bow to that.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, Dave. Look at that hair. Well, Dave, I want to share with you something I used to read all the time as a child. We are here for the children, after all. This is really for the kids. It's all about the kids. I'm going to read to you Roald Dahl that I grew up reading. Not sure if that's a good thing. Like, my mom probably didn't know what was in a lot of Roald Dahl books. But, oh God bless her. I love her mom. Love your mom. I love your mom. But this is Matilda. And I thought I'd read you the first chapter, which is called The Reader of Bugs. It's a funny thing about mothers and fathers. Even when their own child is the most disgusting little blister you could ever imagine, they still think that he or she is wonderful. Some parents go further. They become so blinded by adoration that they manage to convince themselves that children have qualities of genius. While there is nothing very wrong with all of this, it's the way of the world. It's the only way the parents begin telling us the brilliance of their own revolting offspring that we start shouting, "Bring us a basin! We're going to be sick!" School teachers suffer a good deal from having to listen to this sort of twaddle from proud parents, but they usually get their own back when the time comes to write the end-of-term reports. If I were a teacher, I would cook up some real scorches for the children of doubting parents. "Your son, Maximilian," I would write, "is a total washout. I hope you know that you should have probably a good family business you can push him back into when he leaves school, because he sure as heck won't get a job anywhere else." Or if I were feeling lyrical that day, I might write, "It is a curious truth that grasshoppers have their hearing organs in the sides of their abdomen. Your daughter Vanessa, judging by the way she learns this term, has no hearing organs at all." I might even delve deeper into natural history and say, "But periodic..." Someone bought me this beer. I don't drink beer very often, but like, it feels strong. into natural history and say, the periodical cicada spends 6 years as a grub underground and no more than 6 days as a free creature of sunlight and air. Her son Wilfred has spent 6 years as a grub in the school, and we are still waiting for him to emerge from the chrysalis. A particular poisonous little girl might sting me into saying Fiona has the same glacial beauty as an iceberg, but unlike the iceberg, she has absolutely nothing below the surface. I think I might enjoy writing end-of-term reports for the stinkers in my class, but enough of that. We have to get on. Occasionally, one comes across parents who take their opposite line, who show no interest at all in their children, and these, of course, are far worse than the doting ones. Mr. and Miss Wormwood were two such parents. They had a son called Michael and a daughter called Matilda. And the parents looked upon Matilda in a particular nothing more than a scab. A scab is something you have to put up with until the time comes when you pick it off and flick it away. Mr. and Miss Wormwood looked forward enormously to the time when they would pick their little daughter off and flick her away. Preferably into the next county, or even further than that. It is bad enough when parents treat ordinary children as though they were not scabs or bunions, but it somehow is a lot worse when the child in question is extraordinary. And by that, I mean sensitive and brilliant. Matilda was both these things. Her mind was so nimble, and she was so quick to learn that her ability should have been obvious even to the most half-witted of parents. But Mr. and Miss Wormwood were both so gormless and so wrapped up in their own silly little lives that they failed to notice anything unusual about their daughter. To tell the truth, I doubt that they would have noticed had she crawled into the house with a broken leg. By the way, spoiler alert, like she has smoking out of powers, like, spoiler alert. Matilda's brother Michael was a perfectly normal boy, but the sister, as I said, was something to make your eyes pop. By the age of 1.5, her speech was perfect, and she knew as many words as most grown-ups. The parents, instead of applauding her, called her a noisy chatterbox and told her sharply that small girls should be seen and not heard. Really, like you should do like a hashtag underneath me right now. You can hashtag that. Just make sure you hashtag drag queen story time telling, whatever long hashtag that will be. And icons. What? By the time she was 3, Matilda had taught herself to read by studying newspapers and magazines that lay around the house, and at the age of 4, she could read fast and well, and she naturally began hankering after books. The only book in the whole of this enlightened household was something called Easy Cooking, belonging to her mother, and she had to read this from cover to cover and then learned all the recipes by heart. She decided that she wanted something more interesting. Daddy, she said, do you think you could buy me a book? A book? He said. What do you want a flaming book for? To read, Daddy. What's wrong with the telly, for heaven's sake? We've got a lovely telly with a 12-inch screen, and now you've come asking for a book. You're getting spoiled, Michael. Nearly every weekday afternoon, Matilda was left alone in the house. Her brother, 5 years older than her, went to school. Her father went to school, or went to work, and her mother went out playing bingo in a town 8 miles away. Miss Wormwood was hooked on bingo and played it from 5 afternoons a week to 5 nights a week as well. On the afternoon of the day when her father has refused to buy her a book, Matilda set out all by herself to walk to a public library in the village. When she arrived, she introduced herself to a librarian, Mrs. Phelps. She asked if she might sit a while to read a book. Mrs. Phelps, slightly taken aback at the arrival of such a tiny girl, unaccompanied by a parent, nevertheless told her she was very welcome. "Where are the children's books, please?" Matilda asked. "They're over there by the lower shelves," Miss Phelps told her. "Would you like me to help you find a nice one with a lot of pictures in it?" "No, thank you," Matilda said. "I'm sure I can manage." From then on, every afternoon, as soon as her mother had left for Bingo, Matilda would toddle down to the library. The walk took only 10 minutes, and this allowed her 2 glorious hours sitting quietly by herself in a cozy little corner, devouring one book after another. When she had read every single children's book in the place, she wanted to wander around in search of something else. Mrs. Phelps, who had been watching her with fascination for the past few weeks, now got up from her desk and went over to her. "Can I help you, Miss Hilda?" she asked. "I'm wondering what you read next," Matilda said. "I'm finished all the children's books." "You mean you've looked at all the pictures?" "Yes, but I've read all the books as well." Mrs. Phelps looked down at Matilda from her great height, and Matilda looked right back up at her. "I thought some were very poor," Matilda said, "but others were lovely. I liked The Secret Garden best of all. It was full of mystery. The mystery of the room behind the closed door, and the mystery of the garden behind the big wall." Mrs. Phelps was stunned. "Exactly how old are you, Matilda?" she asked. 4 years and 3 months, just like you," Matilda said. Mrs. Phelps was more stunned than ever. She had the sense not to show it. "What sort of book would you like to read next?" she asked. Matilda said, "I would like a really good one that grown-ups read, a famous one. I don't know any names though." Mrs. Phelps looked along the shelves, taking her time. She didn't quite know what to bring out. How, she asked herself, does one choose a famous grown-up book for a 4-year-old? Her first thought was to pick a young teenager's romance of the kind that is written for 15-year-old girls, but for some reason, she found herself instinctively walking past that particular shelf. "Try this," she said at last. "It's very famous and very good. If it's not too long for you, just let me know and I'll find something shorter and a bit easier." Great Expectations, Matilda read, by Charles Dickens. "I'd love to try it." "I might be mad," Mrs. Phelps told herself, but to Matilda she said, "Of course you will try it." Over the next few afternoons, Mrs. Phelps could hardly take her eyes from the small girl sitting for hour after hour in the big armchair at the far end of the room with a book on her lap. It was necessary to rest it on her lap because it was too heavy for her to hold it up, which meant she had to sit leaning forward in order to read. And a strange sight it was. This tiny, dark-haired person sitting there with her feet nowhere near touching the floor, totally absorbed in the wonderful adventures of Pip and the old Miss Havisham, and her cobwebbed house, by the spell of magic that Dickens and the great storyteller had woven with his words. The only movement from the reader was the lifting of a hand every now and then to turn over a page. And Mrs. Phelps always felt sad when the time came for her to cross the floor and say, "It's 10 to 5, Matilda." During the first week of Matilda's visit, Mrs. Phelps had said to her, "Does your mother walk you down here every day and then take you home?" "My mother goes to Aylesbury every afternoon to play bingo," Matilda had said. "She doesn't know I come here." "And that surely is not right," Mrs. Phelps said. "I think you'd better ask her." "I'd rather not," Matilda said. "She doesn't encourage reading books, nor does my father. But what did they expect you to do every afternoon in an empty house? Just mooch around and watch the telly." "I see. She doesn't really care what I do," Matilda said, a little sadly. Mrs. Phelps was concerned about the child's safety. On his walk to this fairly busy village, High Street, and the crossing of the road, she decided not to interfere. Within a week, Matilda had finished Great Expectations, with the edition containing 411 pages. "I loved it," she said to Mrs. Phelps. "Has Mr. Dickens written any others?" "A great number," and she astounded Mrs. Phelps. "Shall I choose you another?" Over the next 6 months, under Mrs. Phelps' watchful and compassionate eye, Matilda read the following books. Nicholas Nickleby by Charles Dickens. Oliver Twist by Charles Dickens, Jane Eyre by Charlotte Bronte, Pride and Prejudice by Jane Austen, Tess and the D'Urbervilles by Thomas Hardy, Gone to Earth by Mary Webb, Kim by Rudyard Kipling. White people have weird names. The Invisible Man by H.G. Wells, The Old Man and the Sea by Ernest Hemingway, The Sound and the Fury by William Faulkner, The Grapes of Wrath by John Steinbeck, The Good Companions by James Casey, Brighton Rock by Graham Greene, Animal Farm by George Orwell. I have the funniest story. When I was like 16, I was like a theater nerd, and I would do anything to get into my school play, but I didn't see, potential in a young Asian ingenue. And they missed out totally, right? Like for sure. And I was doing anything, and one day Animal Farm was going to be the play for our fall play, and they were like, I think you have potential in being a goose. So from then on, I practiced, and there were 3 people in the room next to me. And the end trial for us getting in the play was our goose noise. Would you like to hear my goose noise?
Yes!
Why do I do this to myself? Okay. And I got it! And that's how an Asian ingenue got to be the Queen of the Ball and Animal Farm by George Orwell. Fiercest goose ever. My run across stage from point A to point B, like so fierce. It was formidable. It was a formidable list, and by now Mrs. Phelps was filled with wonder and excitement. But it was probably a good thing that she did not allow herself to be completely carried away by it all. Almost anyone else witnessing the achievements of this small child would have been tempted to make a great fuss to shout the news all over the village and beyond. But not so much Mrs. Phelps. She was someone who minded her own business, and had long since discovered it was seldom worthwhile to interfere with other people's children. Mr. Hemingway says a lot of things I don't understand, Matilda said to her, especially about men and women, but I loved it all the same. The way he tells it, I feel like I'm right there on the spot watching it happen. A fine writer will always make you feel that, Mrs. Phelps said. And don't worry about the bits you can't understand. Sit back and allow the words to wash around you, like music. I will. Did you know, Mrs. Phelps said, that public libraries like this allow you to borrow books and take them home? I didn't know that, Matilda said. Can I do it? Of course, Mrs. Phelps said. When you have chosen the book you want, bring it to me so that I can make a note of it, and it's yours for 2 weeks. You can take it more than once if you wish. This is a true story. From then on, Matilda would visit the library only once a week in order to take out new books and return the old ones. Her own small bedroom now became her reading room, and there she would sit and read most afternoons, often with a mug of hot chocolate beside her. She was not quite tall enough to reach things around the kitchen, but she kept a small box in the outhouse, which she brought in and stood on whenever she needed to get whatever she wanted. Mostly it was hot chocolate she made, warming the milk in a saucepan on the stove before mixing it. Occasionally it was, I'll bring you back, girl. She made a Beauvril or Ovaltine. Bring me back. It was pleasant to take a hot sip to drink to her hot drink to her room and have it beside her as she sat in her silent reading room in the empty house in the afternoons. The books transport her into new worlds and introduce her to amazing people who lived exciting lives. She went on olden day sailing ships with Joseph Conrad. She went to Africa with Ernest Hemingway and to India with Rudyard Kipling. She traveled all over the world while sitting in her little room in an English village, while Mr. Wormwood and Mrs. Wormwood did not take a look at Matilda at all. So that was the first chapter. Thank you.